So once again, I look out here and I'm a little scared because I'm really blown away by the number of folks we have at today's meeting, and we've been getting great attendance, and I really appreciate you. I want to welcome you all. I want to start by wishing everyone a happy 4th of July. Unfortunately, the holiday weekend continued to be marked by violence, hate, anti-Semitism, spam calls, and a level of so-called political discourse that can be only called hate speech. Our featured speaker today, Liz Serricchio, is going to be talking to us about the impact all of this is having on the target of much of it, the LGBTQ plus community. And both she and I will talk a little bit about the actions of the library board and what we can do to make a difference. One of the things that strikes me when I go to these library board meetings or other meetings or see similar events around the country is that I can't differentiate the good guys from the bad guys. They all carry the same damn signs. They all claim to want freedom, freedom of speech, freedom to read or not read things that they disagree with, the right for a parent to decide what their children's activities should be, and the freedom of agency, control over their own lives. Wow. On the face of it, we're all on the same page. Hell no. Their freedom is only extended to those who agree with them. Their religion is only the one that they attend. Their agency means that they get to tell others what they can and can't read, who they can and can't love, and what kind of medical procedures. Can you fix this? You might have to come over here. And what medical procedures they can and can't get. As we celebrate the 4th of July, it got me thinking if I hadn't somewhere or other read something about that kind of thing. I got it in the Constitution. It took the founders 11 years from the Declaration of Independence to complete and ratify the Constitution. Okay,
Keep talking.
keep talking, she says. All right. In 236 years, the Constitution's been amended just 27 times. And now it seems like at every turn, the bedrock principles that we have stood for and fought for are under near constant attack. Last month, Amanda McDougald-Scott addressed us and discussed the GCDP's Priority 6 program for flipping upstate seats in the 2024 election. In that very same meeting, I mentioned 4 relatively current polling results from very respected organizations that found vast majorities of South Carolinians, including Republicans, support a woman's right to choose, actions to protect the climate, universal background checks and red flag laws, and Medicaid expansion. And yet, in Columbia, we have all these Republicans who do not share these values, or many, many others, taking up important seats. Among them are 3 that Amanda has included in the Priority 6 strategy: Bruce Bannister, Jason Elliott, and David Vaughn. Many of us in this room may have actually voted for some of these representatives in the past because they seem like good Republicans. I've even today heard that term more than once. They don't shout, they don't tweet, and they can engage in civil conversation if they absolutely have to. But they vote like this. Bannister and Elliott both voted to amend the state constitution to allow the redirection of public funds to private or religious schools. They both voted yes on the nation's most severe abortion restriction bill, although they voted no on the conference bill because they didn't agree with the exceptions it contained. They both voted yes on the bill to permit censorship in the classroom and on legislation to limit a large swath of topics from being taught in South Carolina schools. They both voted for permitless carry, a bill that was opposed by nearly all law enforcement agencies in the state. So where was I? I think they both voted for permitless carry, a bill that was opposed by nearly all the law enforcement agencies in the state. They both voted for a bill to allow medical, I love this one, medical professionals to refuse to treat patients if those patients have a lifestyle they disagree with. And they both voted to ban transgender students from participating in sports. In only a few months in the House, David Vaughn caught on pretty quickly, voting yes on diverting public funds to private schools, yes on the 2 education bills I mentioned, yes on permitless carry, which he sponsored. Oh, and he also sponsored another bill, love this one too, one that would make abortion a capital crime and allow for a woman to receive the death penalty for having one. That bill got a lot of national attention, and David quickly acted to remove his name from the sponsor list of it. But we have not forgotten. These are not the votes of good Republicans. There's one other bill both Elliott and Bannister voted for. Vaughn was not in the legislature at the time. And that's legislation that gives South Carolina's approval to convening a second constitutional convention. I don't know how many of you know that there's a relatively fast-moving movement to do that? Not exactly a majority. Ostensibly, South Carolina's bill would be limited to adding a requirement for a balanced budget to the Constitution. But observers project that such a convention would target many more areas, including civil rights, free speech, freedom of the press, the limits or not of executive power, voting rights, and much more. The movement to call for a constitutional convention has been bubbling for a while, but since the Trump era, it's really gained steam. South Carolina is the most recent state to give its approval, and we are the 19th state to do so. It will take 34 states to call for one. And you would think, well, we're really far away from that. Not really. 23 states have this legislation on their 2023 dockets. Another 7 have already passed the bill in one chamber. Will this happen this year? Probably not. Will it happen next year? Maybe not. But it is not a fringe or an outlier idea that we need not concern ourselves with. What happens when a group of rabid, ultra-right, MAGA-influenced Republicans come together in a convention to potentially rewrite the Constitution? It scares the whatever out of me. This is where 23 years of full Republican control has gotten us. There are more voters than we think with whom we share values and issues. For years, Democrats in Greenville County and probably statewide have held their noses and voted Republican for the good Republican or the least objectionable Republican. I look at that like smoking. It's an addictive habit and a bad one. You can't always see the damage that it's doing, but you've got to quit it, just as I quit smoking 15 years ago. Cold turkey, because eventually it's going to kill you. We are very fortunate today to have Christale Spain, chair of the South Carolina Democratic Party, with us. Christale's charge is to change the trajectory of Democrats in this state and to get us on a path to success. It may be several cycles before we can wrest control of the legislature back and begin to correct the damage done in the past 2+ decades. But we have to start with winning a seat, or as Amanda says, 6 seats. Christale, please tell us how you're going to do that.
Thank you, Laura. And no pressure. Let me tell you how we're going to win. Got it right here in my notebook. But thank y'all so much for inviting me to participate with you guys this lunch. This is a really, really wonderful crowd. And as I remember, Greenville Democratic Women's always has a very nice turnout. So you guys should really be grateful about that, because not the same all over the state. But I'm glad to be here today. And I just kind of want to tell you a little bit about what I've been doing for the last 73 days since I've been elected to this office. I did hit the ground running literally the following Monday. How I did that or why I did that, I don't know, but I did because this work is very, very important to me. And one thing that I know and know from experience is that we don't get any more time, right? We don't get to waste time because we're not going to postpone election day. We're not going to do any of those things. So the time that we have in front of us is the time that we got. And so I really try to keep that in mind every day as I try to do this work of building and strengthening the Democratic Party. But the first few things that we had to do are some organizational things. They're not glamorous, but according to the rules and bylaws that we all have to abide by, we had to do a few things. And one was reorganize our caucuses. We have 15 caucuses, and we had 2 weeks to reorganize all of them across the state, and we reorganized 14 out of the 15. So it was a very large task for just myself and 2 staff people, but we did get that done. We updated our delegate selection plan, which we'll continue to talk about that, which you guys don't really care about that, but it's just all the little nuts and bolts things that we have to do to make sure that we can send national delegates to the national convention next year in August. And we've also, surprising to me, because as I've said to people, and they ask, how are you doing? How's the work? Are you feeling great about it? And I always say that I was not disillusioned about the role I was asking you, the job I was asking you to give me. I knew that it was going to be a grind because I'd worked for chairs and I'd done this work. So I wasn't disillusioned about it. But what I did know I was going to have to do is so much press. And people were going to want me to come speak. So I have had to try to get used to doing that. But I've tried to take full advantage of the press, although I'm shaking in my boots every time I have to do it. But I'm trying to define South Carolina Democrats, right? Because we are here. We're no longer, as Michelle said, we're no longer whispering about our presence here, right? We're going to be strong and we're going to be vocal about it. And I want to make sure that we are holding the Republicans accountable, because we have some of the worst Republicans in the country right here in our very own state. They're at the state house. They're in the state Senate. They've elevated. Now they're running for president. And we have to stop them. And if we can't stop them, at least we can tell folks what they have done. Like, we have been privy to Tim Scott and Nikki Haley's leadership. No, thank you. It's a no for us. And so every time I get a chance to talk about that, I take it. No matter if it comes and throws a wedge in the middle of my day, I do it because I think it's very important. Fundraising, which I don't have to tell folks in this group, because I'm sure you're all donors. And if you're not yellow dogs, you're going to be running to be a yellow dog when I get off the podium. But really, really doing the work of fundraising. And 2 types of fundraising that we do for the party. And that's the small dollar fundraising. Those are the yellow dogs that give $10 a month, $5 a month. Very, very important money, because that's the money that you can really plan and depend on when it's time to pay the mortgage, when it's time to pay the light bill. So I've been trying to grow that group, and we have grown it. Not substantially, but it's been a really nice uptick, and I'm proud to say that group is increasing. But also re-engaging our donor pool, like those folks that give $1,000 who might, when I call and have these very, very long conversations about, why should I give you money? Or why would I give y'all another dime? And I have to tell them, because you have to, right? And we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And not just selling them a dream, but helping them invest in the vision of South Carolina Democrats. Because we are going to chart a course forward for the Democratic Party here in South Carolina, and making those donors believe it. Easier said than done, but I do it every day. I don't give up. And we're seeing some progress with that, because that is how we fund ourselves for next year. Right? Getting folks to invest now so that we can build a program next year, that we can help Priority 6, that we can help Michelle Shane and Dorothy Dow get reelected. We have to have those funds to do that. So a little bit more glamorous things. There's several buckets, as I'm learning now, right? And the first in the nation is another bucket, which is more exciting bucket when you talk about like national press and all that. But that's a very important bucket, although our state will not be blue. We will not go for Biden, right? But there is a tremendous opportunity for us to capitalize off of folks who support Biden and who also want to be Biden in 2028. right? As I say, be Biden, I mean people who want to run for president in a few years. So I've had lots and lots of conversations with 2028 hopefuls who are ready, and some who are chomping at the bit to get into South Carolina to come and speak to the Democratic women of Greenville and all those things. And I'm so glad this group is so robust and that you're here. So it's not that you have to build an event, it already exists. So I've been talking to the Biden campaign. Those conversations are exciting, trying to help them realize the importance of standing up a campaign here in South Carolina, a really, really strong and visible campaign across the state. And those conversations are going good, but they're just going slow because it's July. Because we all know in this room that if Democrats aren't excited, we are slow to go vote. And so as we can see with the constant parade of Republican candidates, they're definitely trying to excite their base. As crazy as it is, they are doing it and they're excited. In Pickens County, they said it was just a sight to see the other weekend. So we've got our work cut out for us. But just know that the goal with the First in the Nation is to build excitement, but to fund us for 2024. Because as Laura said here, we've got to pick up seats. And that's really why I ran, not because we were first in the nation, but we can't continue to lose seats. Like I feel like what we've done in the past, which has been aspirational, and I am aspirational, but I'm very practical, right? We're not going to turn South Carolina blue. And that's gonna make a lot of people sad. But we have to be, so because I feel like we've been reaching so far, we haven't been watching our own backyard. And the dog is loose and wild, and he is ripping out our members left and right, and we can't even defend abortion. So in 2024, we're going to chart a force forward for South Carolina Democrats. I've already assembled a task force. Some people have been in this room, have been invited. Some people have accepted, but it's called Project Roadmap. And this task force is going to be tasked with figuring out how we win here in South Carolina, how we pick up our state house seats, how we defend our Senate seats, right? There may not be much pickup opportunity there, but if we pick up one or two, we can stop bad legislation in its tracks because of the rules of the Senate. Like you don't have to have the majority, you just got to have a certain number. And you got Representative Leola Robinson Simpson here to help us understand that. So we're going to really be targeted in what we're doing. And I really need everybody's excitement in doing it, right? We don't have a top of the ticket, so that's easier to do it this year for us, but we're really going to be working hard to chart our course for South Carolina Democrats. And so that's kind of what I've got and what I've been doing. Like I said, it's been 73 days, but if you want me to take a few questions, Laura, I can.
Yeah, that would be great. Mobile microphones, run around.
And if you feel so inclined, please go to scdp.org and become a yellow dog. And for folks who don't know why we're yellow dogs, because I think the saying goes, I'll vote for an old yellow dog before I vote for a Republican.
And I'm down with that. Any questions for Christale?
I can't ever resist making a comment when we have such illustrious individuals in our midst. And I'd like to tell you that whenever our vice president comes to town, she likes to brag about how she's a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, the AKAs from Howard University. So I want you all to know that this beautiful sister standing in front of us is a member of my sorority, the greatest sorority ever, with boots on the ground. Always fancy, but we are definitely boots on the ground. And that is the Zetas, the Zeta Phi Beta sorority. So let's give her a big hand.
Thank you.
I'd like to say that the information she presented to us is so important, because when you look at the makeup of the legislature in South Carolina, we're outvoted 2-1 or more. as Democrats.
Mhm.
And we need at least a two-party system.
Mhm.
We do, we need that, and the bills that are being proposed, as Laura brought out, are bills that are very deadly to us and sets us back. So I want to thank you for coming.
Right, well, thank you for having me.
Back of the room. Oh, it's all right. I need my steps.
I wanted to understand again why these other states have been able to vote, where the people got to vote on abortion. Why is that not possible here in South Carolina? Can somebody explain to me why we can't, as people, vote?
So they have
We
a,
can't have a referendum? Or what?
I mean, we can, but my memory serves me correctly, it has to come from both parties to put it on the ballot. And so I can't imagine that we're going to get the Republicans to say, oh yeah, let's put abortion on the ballot. Great idea. And so everybody's state laws are different, right? That's why it's so important to have a governor, a Democratic governor. So these other states like Kansas, I was with their chair a couple of weeks ago. And she really gave me the way they were able to get the abortion amendment passed in Kansas was the way they tied it back to just all kind of stuff that I did not know. The original reason for the laws was basically about owning property, owning people as property, right? So how they got their amendment on, I'm sure it didn't take what it takes here. And they also have Democratic government. So we have a Republican supermajority. The governor, everybody is a Republican, except for is it the comptroller? The one that just got appointed. He is a quiet Democrat. Nobody knows that, but he is one.
We got a question over here.
Absolutely.
And I don't really expect you to know the answer to this after 73 days, but I just want to tee it up. We moved to this area from Charleston.
What? Who leaves Charleston?
Both in that area and the Greenville area, what I observed was that the people moving in, and there are lots of them, are not Republicans.
Mhm.
Right? They're not. I was a realtor down in the Charleston area. So I tracked where those people were coming from and what kinds of people were moving in. But I'm just curious, is there anything being done to identify the percentage of people moving in that have historically been Democrats? How do we go about finding those people? Maybe there's some of those people that have served in elected office that might be candidates to run against some of these people we're trying to get out of office.
So I'll tell you, we had a very productive county chair meeting on yesterday, and we did tap on a project that a data project that we're working on. And I don't have a name for it, but it's really providing county specific voter information per county, because a lot of times the guidance that comes from the state party is like, oh, we got to get young people involved. We got to do this. And it is not a one size fit all situation. And I'll use Horry County, for example, because we did look at the numbers in Horry County because they're always trying to register new young voters. They're not really any there, right? But the voter registration in Horry County from 2018 to now, I think there's been like 100,000 plus new registrants that are over 50. So that means that they're retiring into Horry County. So Horry County's outreach needs to look totally different than maybe, I was using Greenville, but maybe not, right? Where there may be where young people may be moving in. They need to be focusing on talking about issues that matter to retirees. How Tim Scott and Nikki Haley want to gut Social Security and Medicare. Like these are the talking points that need to be happening in Horry. And so that is the goal for that project, is that every county is going to know what their voter looks like. And then we're going to give them a recommendation on outreach. And hopefully by then we'll have like messaging points as well. But yes, very important that, you know, we don't really know what our voters look like anymore. And to also say this last piece, in 2020, with Jamie Harrison ran and he was a party Dem and he gave us so much money and we had so much time and money, we were able to do some targeting modeling that we've never ever in the history of the party that I've been there been able to do it. And so there was always a theory that white women who didn't have primary voting history were Republicans. And so we had a few months to test this theory out, and we discovered that they are Republicans, right? And which is fine. But now we can push them out of the universe that we need to mobilize. Like before, we were wasting time trying to talk to them, and we can say, okay, well, we're not talking to them. Now we can try to talk to this group and that group. So it was just really important work, because it's important for Michelle, who's running for mayor, who can see that data, to know that, okay, I don't need to worry. Well, she maybe can talk to them, not me. You know, maybe it's a different persuasion universe for her, but that kind of work is so vitally important, so that we're not spinning our wheels as the party, and our candidates can make better decisions about what their voter looks like, because it's gonna be different sometimes, a candidate voter and a party voter.
I don't know a lot about real estate, but I do understand what this lady's talking about. And I'm wondering if there's a way from your database, because it's public information, to log who's purchased properties and to have like a mailing to those households who are new to South Carolina, you know, with Democratic information in rather short order, try to get them involved, you know, when they're new residents.
That's a good idea.
Takes money.
Yeah, not that it's free, but it's another data set.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the project?
Roadmap. So Project Roadmap, and I could have brought a flyer for everybody. We'll announce it this week. I was just waiting on a few more folks to accept or decline the invitation. But it is a task force that is specifically designed to do 4 things, I think. Is that me? Okay. One is make recommendations on a coordinated campaign model. And that might be jibber jabbish for this group, but the party runs a coordinated campaign every other November, well, every other election cycle, where we're trying to get people to go in and vote for all the Democrats, right? That's when we have organizers. Greenville might get some money for another office and all those things. So that's a part of the coordinated campaign. And right now, that model that we use is a top of the ticket model, which means the person at the top of the ticket funds the operation. And so it works and doesn't work, right? We saw in 2020, which is a great example, where Jamie, of course, was a former party chair. He believed in this model. He flooded all this money in, paid for whatever we needed to pay for. We sent money across the state to county parties, all the things. In 2022, we had a different candidate who didn't believe in that. And so didn't fund the party in that way. So county parties, which are the front lines, didn't get any money. We didn't really have a ground game, because that's who drives the fundraising. And so the party got caught flat-footed. And not only did we not win that race, which is the governor's race, but we also lost those races, those backyard races, that we feel the impact of those losses every day. And so that task force is going to make a recommendation of what else can we do, because other states do it differently. I'm not saying that we won't ever do that again, but that can't be the only way, right? Like Georgia has a buy-in model, which means that campaigns, depending on what level they're running at, have to make a buy-in, right? That they have to help fund this effort. It's a group funding situation, and it's based on, you know, what race you're running for, and you get certain things out of it. The same things you would get from the top of the ticket, but you're also paying in. There are other states that do like a stakeholder model, who have strong House caucuses and Senate caucuses and other things. They have donor tables and they do things differently. So we don't have any of that. So this task force is going to help us figure out how we do that. And it's great, because next year we don't have a top of the ticket. So what are we going to do? And number 2, how we better support, recruit, and train our candidates, right? Because right now I feel like that's a huge gap. Like the expectations aren't really there, laid out for the candidate from the party. I think some county parties try to lay that out for their candidates, but making sure that we're laying out our expectations, as well as telling them what they can expect from us, and how we train them, how we can support them even after, because when people have a bad experience, they're not going to run again, and we need them to run again, even if it's not for that office, right? Maybe something else more local comes up, and you're like, no, I hate the party. Why would I help you guys again? It's like, no, that's the wrong attitude. So it's that, and also our voter engagement and organizing, which the ground game is the most important, but I do feel like we've got to get past some of the fear that we may have now developed because of not doing it because of COVID, and just because how increasingly crazy and dangerous the world has become. Because the more I talk to people, I'm like, I'm not doing it. Like, oh God, people are not even going to do it this time. So we need to really start talking about that and how we, create some kind of program to train our volunteers to be safe and just all those things, to put those safeguards in place. And lastly, our stakeholders, our partners and allies. We have them, but we really don't have a working relationship with all of them. Like we've got the SCA, we've got Planned Parenthood, we've got the House Caucus, the Senate Caucus. There are lots of organizations that have similarly aligned missions that we could work with to a certain degree, but we don't. And so when we chart our course next year, and when I say that, we're going to also be very public about our battlefield. Like as Michelle just said, and we were talking, the whisper campaign is over. Like we can no longer sneak around and say, well, we're going to try to win this seat over here. Shh, don't wake them, let them slip. It doesn't work, right? And so we are going to lay out our battlefield. Here are the seats we're going after, so that it also sends a signal to those groups to know that if they're going to do voter registration, they need to be up here in this House district. They need to be doing this, because we're not going to hide it, because we've hit it and we lose. So what do we have to lose? We're going to be, well, I hate to say that because somebody else said that, but we know what we have to lose, and we're not willing to lose it anymore. And I know all that isn't exciting, but it is our path forward. Well, thank y'all so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Speaking of candidates, thank you, Christale. Speaking of candidates, we don't have to wait for good news in 2024. We are going to have good news in 2023 when we re-elect Dorothy Dow to the Greenville City Council. And elect Michelle Shane as mayor.
Yeah.
We Democratic women have been working very closely with these campaigns. We're currently organizing canvassing and phone banking for both the Shane and Dow campaigns. Evelyn Nocella over here has been managing this effort. And I'm really excited about how much we've been able to accomplish so far. On your tables, you all have a table card for both Dorothy and Michelle. It's got QR codes on it where you can sign up for volunteer activities and or make a donation to their campaigns. Snap the code, take an action, get into the race. I will put these links into the post-meeting newsletter that I send out afterwards, so you'll have them, but do it now, and that way you won't forget. I hope a lot of you will also join us as we contact voters and conduct voter registration at the block parties that we're going to be doing this summer. I've reached out to all the other Democratic groups in the county to pull them into these activities as well, because I firmly believe that if we work together and we work with one purpose, and we exponentially increase our chances of success. So now on to the main event, but to avoid those clumsy things in the middle where I have to stop because I'm not getting the right thing on the screen, I'm going to take like a 1-minute break so I get this set up right first. Talk among yourselves, and I'll be right back. This is your commercial break.
Hi, everybody. Oh, is this on?
Yeah, just speak it right in the top.
Okay, can y'all hear me?
Oh, yeah.
Take your break, but just if you could listen for just a minute. I just want to announce how important these cards are on the table for both Michelle and I. So the Dow campaign has started phone banking and canvassing, and the Shane campaign has started canvassing. And if you are in this room and live in the city, raise your hand. So as a minimum, I ask y'all to get to the polls and get 5 people with you. If you are not in the city, you can't vote for us. If you are in this room and you don't like heat, raise your hand. Maybe canvassing is for you, maybe not. But we are out there. And there is shade. And that is the best way to get people to do it. And if you're nervous about it, I get it. That's fine. Maybe you want to be incognito behind a phone. So phone bank for us, air conditioned, and the people don't know you and their friendly calls. And if neither of those appeal to you, you can't vote, you can't phone bank, don't want to canvass, donate. We cannot win this race without everyone's help in here. And I am pleading, because we could lose the majority on city council. And that would be devastating for the city, and it will cascade on through the county. I promise you that. So please, just do something. Just do something. That's all we ask. That's all we ask. Thank y'all so much.
That was 60 seconds. Thank you, Dorothy. Okay, commercial's over. So our featured speaker today is Liz Serricchio. She's a mental health professional and advocate, a therapist who works with many clients, including transgender youth and their families. If you've attended any of the library board meetings, you've probably seen Liz as a speaker and a fixture and passionate speaker at those events. She's the co-founder of 864 Pride and the Queer Wellness Center, which has been kind enough to be very welcoming to our board, because we have our monthly board meetings at the Queer Wellness Center. She's also the founder and CEO of Amaryllis Counseling, an LGBTQ plus nonprofit focused on addressing medical disparities. Taken all together, Liz's work creates safe spaces and supportive communities for a community that seems to have always been marginalized, but is now on the front lines of an inane culture war that we find ourselves in. I didn't realize this until she arrived today, but Liz has managed to squeeze us in between whatever she was doing yesterday and leaving for a 2-week trek through the Badlands at some time early this evening. So we're very pleased that Liz took the time to speak to us today. And Liz, welcome to Democratic Women.
Well, hey, everybody. I'm very excited to be here. Usually when I do a speaking engagement, I don't know until like maybe 15 to 20 minutes in who is completely against me versus like supportive and glad that I'm there. So I don't even know how to tell you how relaxed I was just driving here, knowing that I was going to be around people that like I didn't even have to worry. Sorry.
No, you're good.
I didn't even have to worry like walking into the room what I was saying was going to offend the people that were in the room, and that I didn't have to think. That is huge, not y'all. I didn't have to think about the fact that like I need to call somebody and make sure I have a friend in the room just in case something goes down, right? So like that was just incredibly wonderful and empowering for me. Thank you so much for introducing me and all the things that I do. Yeah, essentially I'm a mental health therapist. Knew that I wanted to be a mental health therapist from the time that I was very young. Partly due to my own life and the things that I had to overcome. Always wanted to be the person who helped someone else through what they were going through, even if I couldn't necessarily impact the situation, make it better, for at least knowing they're not going through what they're going through alone is what mattered most to me. I never imagined that being my passion and the work that I put in and the degrees that I got and the licenses that I now have would then lead me to being in the middle of something like what's happening right now. But I am grateful to be in the position that I'm in. I'm grateful to have the impact that I have on the community. And when I say community, I'm referring to the queer community. A lot of what I talk about today is going to focus specifically on the LGBTQ plus community, the incredible hit that we have been taking for a while now, but it definitely came to a head this year. And just, I don't know, like supercharged, I guess. And it's been, as someone who is a mental health professional and also part of the queer community myself, and also working with my own clients who, like, every day we're seeing this stuff come down and we're watching the states become progressively darker and darker red in terms of danger for us. And then our own human rights campaign issue a state of emergency for my community. Like, that's hard to be the person who's like, oh, this is gonna maybe impact me and my safety and my wife's safety. And also I need to be this professional person and sit in this room with my clients who are also facing this and have their own fears. And so there's a level of parallel processing that's required in this position, and everybody who works at my organizations. Just to tell you a little bit about myself and what we're doing, Amaryllis Counseling is an LGBTQ mental health clinic. And so I have just this month 20 therapists who are providing individual, couples, and family therapy. We host coming out sessions for folks who don't feel like they're safe enough to come out on their own. We assist folks through the transition process, the social and medical process. And there is a lot of assistance that goes into that. No one just willy-nilly decides to make a change to their gender and it happens automatically, like all these ridiculous stories that are being circulated around. But a lot of our work for our folks through our mental health clinic was super helpful, right? A lot of people were receiving services that never existed. Prior to Amaryllis Counseling, there was no LGBTQ affirming mental health clinic in the upstate of South Carolina. There were a few therapists here and there that were doing it, but it wasn't like a whole clinic was developed specifically for this. And what we realized is that even though we were doing what we could with accepting all the insurance companies and doing pro bono work, that there was still the most marginalized of the marginalized were still slipping through the cracks. According to the Upstate Needs Assessment in 2018, a large portion of LGBTQ plus adults make under $12,000 a year. They don't have access to health insurance. They don't have the funds to be able to pay for services for themselves. And largely that is due to the fact that a lot of times they get outed before they have the ability to take care of themselves, or their parents pull the whole financial power play of, well, if you're going to do this, I'm not going to assist you with any of the things that you would normally have to be able to launch yourself and have a successful life from here, right? And so what we realized is that we weren't answering enough of the need with just Amaryllis Counseling. And so we founded 864 Pride in order to hit that demographic that was falling through the cracks. So 864 Pride is the philanthropic nonprofit which provides free mental health services, free medical services, free financial assistance in being able to get the services that individuals need. And also a large portion of that too is training and advocacy and speaking in groups like this to create more awareness in the community so that there is more support built around the LGBTQ plus community. So I'm very excited to be here. I think it's really important that the queer community is represented in places like this. Like, we're never going to show up on a docket, an agenda item. I mean, like, not in a positive way at a Republican meetup, you know, like, this is only going to happen here. And it's really important that we do have that visibility in spaces like this so that our needs are important to not just our community, but for folks outside of our community. So thank you so much for having me. We're gonna start like out and zoom our way in. So we're gonna start with looking at just like what's happened on a national level. And this is just specifically for the LGBTQ plus community, because that's what I'm here to represent. All of this information was taken from the Human Rights Campaign. And I think I cited some of the actual statistics at some point. But year to date, over 520 anti-LGBTQ bills were introduced this year. So since January till now, over 520 specifically targeting my community have been introduced across America. Over 220 of those were targeting gender expansive folks. When I say gender expansive, I mean anyone who is not cisgender. So cisgender refers to an individual who identifies with the sex they were assigned at birth. Anyone outside of that, so someone who is transgender, someone who is non-binary, someone who is gender fluid, whatever it is, or maybe they're just non-conforming in terms of expression, right? Like they choose to wear clothes that they're more comfortable in versus what society says is male or female clothes, right? So over 220 bills specifically targeting those folks. The things that stood out was banning gender affirming care for all trans youth. So anybody under the age of 18, and in some cases, anyone under the age of 21. So like, even if you're over 18 until 21, you weren't somehow allowed to make that decision for yourself. Also banning trans youth from sports and all a slew of bathroom bills and inclusive of locker room bills as well. Of those 520 that were introduced, 70 of those were enacted in 2023. The ones that were enacted include banning gender affirming care for trans youth in specific states, requiring trans students to be misgendered. So like not just saying that we're not going to acknowledge, but we're requiring school personnel to specifically misgender and dead name students. And also taking it a step further of outing students, targeting drag performances, creating a license to discriminate. So basically creating a way, and I guess we saw it over the 4th of July, where a business, I don't know, came up with some hypothetical situation and she was allowed to say like, okay, well, we don't serve queer people. So that gave way for that to influence that to be able to happen. And then censoring school curriculums and book banning. So these are all of the things that, and you could say, well, is this censoring the school curriculum and book banning, is that really related to LGBTQ? Absolutely it is. If you look at the bills and you read in the lines, it specifically identifies anything that has to do with gender expansiveness or sexual orientation. Like they usually put it in terms of gender identity disorder, which that's not even in the DSM as a mental health professional, that does not exist. So it is an anti-LGBTQ law. In terms of like national opinion, and so yeah, these are cited. 64% of individuals who were polled in the data for progress in March of 2023, 64 folks believe that anti-LGBTQ laws are too much. So like that's majority, right? 54% opposed bans on gender affirming care. And again, another majority. 58% opposed drag show restrictions. And 60% support LGBTQ materials and DEI work in schools. So I loved somebody's comment over here was like, why can't we let the people vote for themselves instead of having to let these people in suits who have all of this incredible mental hangups make the decisions? I agree with that. Because as you can see, I mean, like, yes, this was polled. This is polled information, and so it doesn't necessarily cover everyone, but like majority of folks don't support what's happening, right? Which is very interesting that they're just continuing to, the politicians are continuing to wage war on my community and attack us when nobody else really seems to be quite as up in arms about it as they are. So in terms of local legislation, there are a lot of bills that were up this year. I focused on 11 of these, and these are the bills that are currently advancing in regards to anti-LGBTQ legislation. A lot of them you can see are specifically surrounding school and education. Everybody's incredibly worried about the children. In the absolute worst way possible. It's incredible. But there are 4 bills that I specifically wanted to go in depth a little bit with y'all on because they are incredibly dangerous in terms of mental health purposes. And what we know is that, and I apologize, since COVID, like my brain doesn't hold on to information unless I can see it anymore. So like I know the statistics, but there is a very high statistic for queer youth, specifically trans youth, who do contemplate and attempt suicide, who are not given access to gender affirming care. And so the reason why I'm focusing on these 4 bills is because of the attack that it places on folks' ability to access that care. This is literally flying in the face of the American Medical Association, the American Psychological Association. I don't know what this is. Should I say okay? Don't allow. Okay, we won't allow it. The American Psychological Association, the American Counseling Association, the National Association for Social Workers, like literally every professional medical and mental health association out there, including the DSM, which is a slew of professional psychiatrists, and also the insurance companies, all agree like this is not what we need to be doing. And so legislation is truly going against medical and mental health advice. People who have zero education, experience, understanding of anything are making decisions that are against, I don't even know, like this is crazy for me to even stand up here and say this, like that's wild to me that they can do that, right? Restrictions should be put on the politicians. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about these 4 bills specifically that I'm worried about coming back next year. Like they got all the way up to this year and they didn't quite get to pass it. So our concerns are next year, would this actually get passed? So S247, this is the one that has to do with folks who are under 21. It refers to folks who have gender dysphoria as folks who have a gender identity disorder. That's not even an accurate term. It bans gender affirming care for anyone under 21. It requires school personnel to out students. It requires conversion therapy. So basically it's saying, now not in those exact words, but it says that they are required to seek mental health help to help them learn the dangers of and accept their own gender, right? So that is conversion therapy. So it would require conversion therapy. And not allow any public funds to cover gender affirming care. I actually went to the courthouse, the Capitol, and spoke to the Senate on that bill specifically when they were hearing people. I got in under, I told them I was speaking for it, and so they thought I was speaking for it, but I was actually opposing it. So they were like really excited, and they actually put the news on me because they thought a mental health professional was going to support them, and I didn't. So they were very mad, but screw them. S424, this has to do with censorship of curriculum. So they're censoring out any LGBTQ materials, any DEI work, any censoring out critical race theory, censoring out sex education. Like, why would we do that? And then giving the parents the right to remove their child from the class that day without repercussions if they have a moral issue with whatever it is that's being talked about. And so, and they word it right in these like really sneaky ways of like, we don't want the children to be in the middle of any kind of political activism type issues. Well, I'm sorry, when did the lives of people of color and the lives of people, LGBTQ folks, become a political activism issue? Like, our lives are not political activism issues. Our lives are just like everybody else's lives. H3551, this one has to do with anybody under the age of 18. It prohibits hormone therapy for minors, including puberty blockers for minors, which like for some kids, like there are true, beyond gender affirming care, there's true medical reasons why children need to be able to access these things. They don't apparently care about that. prohibiting gender affirming care for all minors. So that has to do with, this would include the mental health services. So like what my folks do. Amarillo's Counseling 864 Pride, all of the work that we do to support people in going through this process, which they require that someone is in therapy for X amount of time, that we do diagnose them with gender dysphoria, that we do screen out any other mental health disorders that would basically make them not of sound mind and body to make that kind of decision. So like all the work that we're required to do to help people, that would then be prohibited and also criminalized. So it would be a criminal offense for myself or any number of folks on my team, and also the team. Adolescent medicine here at Prisma is incredibly amazing. Dr. Guyton is wonderful. Dr. Laterza just joined his team. They're incredible people. If they continue to provide medically necessary services, right, we would all be criminally prosecuted for that. So that's why I'm very concerned, because like I don't see us stopping doing what we're doing, because the people that empower are going to make these laws. But I don't know. I don't know. I have defiance issues. S627 under 18. This prohibits all gender affirming care for minors, including the mental health services, prohibiting public funds for procedures for minors, criminalizing violators, and requiring school personnel to out students. And I don't know about the criminalization, but I'm sure there would be massive repercussions. So those are the 4 bills that we are tracking most closely in terms of, what's the impact going to be on our community. Is there a way to plug in your laptop if the battery is going down? Just a breakdown and themes for South Carolina. In addition, like all the other bills, I didn't want to like go through all of them, but the themes are there would be an impact on IDs. So limiting the ability to update information. This is really important for folks who have to change their gender marker, who need to change their name. If you make it, there's already a ridiculously long process. Like it took me and this one guy like 6 months to a year to get his ID updated. This would make it even more difficult, next to impossible. And so that creates a safety issue for folks being able to basically not be outed if they don't want to be. There's a civil rights issue where we're weakening non-discrimination laws, allowing businesses and even hospitals to turn folks away if you don't want to provide services to them. Freedom of speech and expression. There's with the censorship of books, curriculums, and drag performances, we're cutting back on that ability or that freedom. Healthcare, prohibiting the gender affirming care and criminalizing providers who continue to do the work. Public accommodations, prohibiting trans folks from using restrooms and locker rooms. And then with schools and education, preventing trans students in sports, censoring curriculums, outing students, censoring any LGBTQ plus discussions amongst students. In terms of what's happening in Greenville, stuff that I think y'all are probably all aware of that we need to watch, specifically with county council, I got a bone to pick with him. Steve Shaw, he specifically targeted Tiffany Santaghetti, a member of our board, and made it so that she could not be on the library board when she was supposed to be, just because she sits on our board. She's the chair of the children's something, I can't even think of it. It's this huge organization. Children's Trust, yes, here in South Carolina. And because she sits on our board, she was blocked, and he went on a smear campaign. He also went after the Human Relations Commission for fair housing because they had rainbow umbrellas at their 50th anniversary party. They weren't even queer. They were donated by somebody else, but they also have been doing a good amount of work with us over the past year to educate LGBTQ plus folks on their rights in housing when it comes to discrimination and whistleblowing, and could they just lose their housing because they get outed. And they were doing a lot of outreach. And so he specifically found those things that we helped them create and made that an issue. So we have started a petition. If you follow this link up here, feel free to write it down if you want to. We want him to resign. We don't think he's going to resign. We doubt this will go anywhere other than the fact that I want him to see that he can't just bully people and everyone is just okay with it. So as we have almost 300 signatures on this petition for him to resign, my goal is to get to at least 500. I'd love 1,000, and then I want to go back and throw it in his face. The library board, I think y'all are probably all aware of that. This whole ridiculous year-long process of the pride displays. Moving LGBTQ materials out of the children's section because they're mature information, or I don't know, should be adult information. There's a group called FLAG, GVL, Freedom for Library, or Freedom Libraries Advocacy Group. There you go. Thank you. You should follow them if you don't already. They are probably one of the main organizations that I'm aware of that is continuing the fight. They're the ones who always let me know, like, hey, we need a mental health person to be there, either if it's just for support for folks or if it's to go up and yell at these people. But it's not over, and they literally took down, it was just a chain link of rainbows that said read with pride, and that was too much for people. And that was specifically, I think the TR library was the one that took the most heat this year. And I think that's actually Steve Shaw's district. Yeah, iffy, sort of. Some of it is, right? And then another thing just to put on y'all's radar is Moms for Liberty is here in Greenville. They are targeting to flip the seats on the school board. The ones in orange, so area 17 Blue Ridge, area 27 Malden, area 21 Eastside, those are already conservative seats. So it would be great if we could flip their seats. And our areas, I mean, they're not really our areas. They're just kind of like, they're okay, but they're not going to like allow Moms for Liberty to run wild. Area 19 TR, area 23 downtown is safe, area 25 Piedmont Fork Shoals area. So those are safer areas. We want to protect those seats. And if we know folks who are in 17, 27, and 21, we really want to try and flip those seats so that we can have, right now it's like dead because there's 3 that are incredibly conservative and 3 that are more moderate to safer for us. So do it. Oh. Yes. Wonderful. So basically bringing it all around to mental health implications, right, of what this means. As a mental health provider with a team of therapists that I supervise, we service just under 1,000 LGBTQ individuals just here in Greenville in the upstate. And so a lot of my information kind of stems from the work that we do. We have one of the largest ways to track information here in the upstate. So there has been, based on everything that has happened this year, that we have seen an increase in depression and like severe depression. We've seen an increase in anxiety and social anxiety, specifically of being afraid to go out in public, being afraid to express in public, being afraid to be themselves and interact with their loved ones as they normally would in public. There's also an increased sense of oppression of like, oh, well, all these people are against me. Like everyone's against me. The powers that be speak for more than just themselves. Like they don't realize, like, no, the majority of people out there are not agreeing with what is happening in the political realm. There's an increase in minority stress, and that does decrease the sense of self-efficacy of like, I don't necessarily know that I can handle this or do what I need to do or even get up out of bed today. And there's an increase in interpersonal conflict, right? When we think everybody's against us, it's hard to tell who our friend is versus our foe. And then everybody feels like an enemy. And then we're just like nasty with everyone because we just feel unsafe. And then there's also an increased sense of hopelessness of like, well, how did we come this far, do this much work? It's 2023. We're legally able to get married. And then like, now we're just hitting all of these, like this onslaught attack of anti-LGBTQ legislation. So it's, and an unfortunate part of this too, is that folks who have family members who are not supportive feel that much more empowered and that much more self-righteously empowered to say and do things that are incredibly discriminatory and harmful to these individuals who are just trying to get through the day, right? It's so if you have people in your life who are queer individuals, it's important to make sure that you show them that love, you show them that support, you show them that unconditional positive regard, letting them know that you are a safe person, even if it's just as simple as like asking someone's pronouns or using the pronouns that they prefer and using the correct name. Like that makes the world just a little bit safer for an individual. On the other side of this, I also wanted to share probably an unintended impact of what is happening. It's almost like, well, we didn't have much to begin with, and you're taking everything else away from us. So like, what else do we have to lose? If you're already going to make us the target of everything, like, I don't know, like if Steve Shaw literally said, like, nobody who is a queer person or supportive, out and proud supportive of a queer organization will ever be considered for someone to run in public office of county council or whatever. So like, if you're going to go ahead and brazenly say that, like, we don't really have anything to lose. Like, okay, you have something to lose because you're in a position of power. So there is an increased sense of unity within the community. There is an increased sense of connectedness and communication. We are banding together like I have never seen our community band together before. And we are being incredibly open and obvious about who we are. And we're not hiding it. We're not ashamed of it. It's not scary or something that we whisper about. And there's an increased sense of self-respect of like, no, I deserve just as much respect as anybody else. It's absurd that a woman who wants a penis in her vagina is somehow more wholesome or morally appropriate than a woman who doesn't. Like, I know that's base and a little bit crass sounding, but that's basically the foundation of what we're talking about here. It's ridiculous. So you're going to respect me just like you. So, and with that, a decreased tolerance for discrimination. Like, we're not taking it anymore. Like, you can dish it out, but I'm not going to be here for you to accept it from you. Like, you're going to talk to a blank wall now. Increased action to mobilize and be vocal about our opposition of things, and an increased sense of strength and desire to fight back. Like, we're not just taking it. So things that are really important for y'all to do, obviously, like and some of this is a bit repetitive with county council, like writing, calling, meeting with, voicing your support of the LGBTQ community specifically. If you don't acknowledge it, they're going to brush right over it. And they don't expect people who look like you to be talking about issues like this. So you might even make a bigger impact than somebody who looks like me walking in. They're already going to be like, oh yeah, she's going to talk about it. Attend the county council meetings and represent with pride, like wear rainbow colors, wear trans colors, where are the colors that make people see like, oh no, there's more people that support this. Be vocal and make it newsworthy. The news is a funny thing. Like, there are some things that they're willing to make newsworthy, and there are some things that they're just honestly like too chicken shit to even touch. And it's sad, but if you can get their attention in a way that they feel safe promoting your story, they will promote your story. The library board, calling, writing, meeting with them, voicing your opposition, attending the library board meetings, attend the flag events, and follow them on social media. I think it's at flag GVL. State legislation, again, with the senators, like call them, write them, meet with them, attend the events in Columbia. Like people will gather here and talk about like, yeah, we're going to show up. And then we are in Columbia and then like nobody else is there. And it's like, where are all the folks from Greenville? Like they were fired up last week about this. Get on the ACLU and the SC United mailing list. They will keep you updated on everything that is happening at the Capitol. And so you'll know when you need to show up and mobilize. They're great. And like some of it's last minute. And honestly, it's not their fault. Like things get called last minute and it gets very confusing. 2024 is very important that y'all do show up because that's when those bills that are advancing could actually pass. So like if y'all are fighting against that, if you're not already strategizing how to fight those, you need to start strategizing that now. And then Moms for Liberty, identifying like moderate candidates. I'm not delusional enough to think that, you know, we could get anybody who isn't moderate into those library board seats just because they're incredibly but if you know people, you can use, if you have like political or financial connections to support and promote them, educating folks on the importance of voting and when to vote. Like most people are like, well, I don't have kids, or, you know, my kid's already out of school. Why is it important for us to vote in the Board of Education? Like it's incredibly important. We do not want Moms for Liberty to come in here and take over our school board. Our queer children are already being discriminated against under the current work that's being done. They come in like our kids, the statistics of our children's survival is going to plummet if they come in and do what they did. And well, I don't even know where they were, Beaufort or whatever it is that they did there. So it's important. We need to fight them. Questions? I apologize. Also, I have a bad mouth. I grew up on the streets. So if I offended anybody, I'm sorry.
I'm gonna take a little bit of a pause for questions here to do a little interactive thing. So here in my hand, I have 12 applications for county boards and commissions. And I want to talk a little bit briefly about the library board. In the past, up until this year, the city council, city boards and commissions, and the county boards and commissions took applications in July together. Now that's been separated, right? The county starts in September.
The city takes them year round. It's just we make
assignments
2 times in a year. So it's open year round and your application's online.
Okay, sorry, misrepresented. Thank you. But the county is no longer doing it in July, and they open the application period for county boards, which the library board is, in September. So we have a little bit of time to get some people on board. So there are 6 open positions, 3 in District 18. Anybody lives in District 18, in this group here. Amanda, District 18.
Yeah. Okay. It's very nice to meet you. Yeah.
Sorry.
County website though, they have a 5-year representative that actually works quite well. So if you go on there and put a word address, it'll pull up your county council your number.
Right. Yeah, you can find that. You can certainly find that out. But for today's purpose, I'm looking to hand out these applications to potentially interested people. So if we don't know if we're in District 18, we got 2 positions that are going to be open in District 20.
I don't think you have to be a resident of that.
Supposed to, yes, for library board. Yeah. Okay, well, I'll tell you what, I got these 12 applications. I'm gonna put them on the table over here. So if you're not sure what district you're in, take an application home, check it out, go to scvotes.gov and find out where your districts are, or vote411.org, which is the League of Women Voters site. Or look on the back of your voter registration card if you happen to have it. So,
I can't say the name, but we actually do have a really, really great candidate for that. And so one really good thing that we can do in a nonpartisan way is to help support some of our really strong candidates. This person in particular actually has a master's in library science. We used to work at the National Library of Medicine. She's also got a very successful community business and is known to be nonpartisan, but she does get money to do it. So, I just say all that so that we can hopefully, use some of our even field energy to support her when she's with her application.
all right. Okay. So questions for Liz? Any?
Is conversion therapy allowed in South Carolina? Because
It is.
of course it is.
Yeah. Yes, the question was, is conversion therapy allowed in South Carolina? The answer is yes, it is.
I lost my head there.
You had mentioned in talking about some of the legislative bills, that they mandate that the school outs a child
Yes,
to
to their parents.
To the parents.
Yeah.
Okay, not to the school.
Oh, yeah, no, to the school administrators, like the school has to be made aware, the administrators, like everybody in the school, it is an authority position, right? And then their parents also.
Well, and to that too, you might not do it to others, the teacher might not say, look, all students, this is, we're gonna out him or her or she or them or whatever. But the minute you close the bathroom to a person, you have outed them. Absolutely.
Right. Move on. I'm over.
Thank you. Elizabeth, you're gonna have to help me out on this, but yesterday I heard Terry Gross from Fresh Air. She interviewed the documentary producer and 3 of the people who were in the video. And it was about the people who are born with something in their body that is one or two sexes. So it could be,
Intersex,
pardon me?
people who are intersex.
Yes.
Yeah.
So intersex people, through no fault of their own, obviously, because they're born with a mixed XY or YY, whatever
Chromosome.
it could be, fall under the same rules as anybody else here. So even if they're born with a medical condition, if you wanted to put it that way, they also cannot get care.
Except at birth.
At birth, immediately, yes, yes. A decision is made. If the physician can tell that the gender is ambiguous enough, they can do a medical emergency procedure without the consent of the parents to choose whatever gender that child most likely looks like based on external genitalia. That's a current practice of today. Yes, there's, okay. The microphone is coming.
I wanted to ask about the safety that might be in place of security for the LGBTQ. I know, having lived in Greenville for quite some time, the last 40-some years, I remember a case in the 80s of a young man who went out to a club out on Pelham Road and was beaten to death when he came out. We happen to know his parents, and it was devastating. And I see now even more hatred and more attack as far as the actual verbal part of that. What do you see in place, or are the police and others on board to make sure that those all are protected?
So Yeah, that's a great question. I think it would depend on the officer. And truly, that's sad, but that is accurate as to whether or not a member of the queer community would be protected in a situation like that. And who would be named as the aggressor. Like trans women of color are way more likely to be criminalized, even if they were the victim of the crime. Statistically, just if we're talking about youth, 50% of our youth here in the upstate are being physically attacked outside of the home, and 75% of them are being verbally assaulted at school by kids and school personnel. When we're talking about safety, the first line of safety is other members within the queer community, and then the second line of safety is our allies. And some of them are in positions of authority and some of them are not. I wish it was like, oh yeah, you could call and it would be fine. But the truth of the matter is that no, there isn't necessarily any additional safety. Like we paid for them to come to Pride and to be the Greenville police to protect the Pride event, and they were great and they were there. So it's kind of, but like they also gave those officers the option of coming to attend and be the ones to be at the Pride. So it really just kind of depends on the individual officer.
Liz, I want to thank you very, very much for all that information. It's great. All the work that you're doing sounds absolutely incredible.
Thank you.
Something that you can take with you to the Badlands.
Oh, I will.
Okay, so I do have a bunch of notes, but I'm not going to do them now. I'm going to put them in the after meeting email so we can get on with the day. But I do want to say one thing. We have launched our online store, which I'm not going to show you, which I was going to, but I'm going to put the link. So you can go online, you can buy Democratic Women merchandise. And the reason I want to mention this is the point of all the merchandise, the stickers, the hats, the t-shirts, is to spread the word, to Lisa's point, to spread the word that there are Democratic women and Democrats here in Greenville County. I would like to see those Democratic bumper stickers on your cars when I walk through the parking lot, when I'm stuck in traffic on 85. Okay, it's not a fun money raising thing. It's a increased footprint and awareness. And the more we can tell people we're here, the more we can mobilize people to act and get more people voting and win these seats. Thank you, everybody, for coming, and have a great day.